Hello everybody, and thanks for coming to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a walkthrough of my album. It's using the Moments in Time by Heartfelt Creations that you can get at Country Craft Creations at the time of this recording. I was originally going to make a 6x6 when I got the collection, but I ended up not doing a 6x6. What did I end up doing? Let's see. I think it's 9 3/4. See? Yep, 9 3/4 by 8 1/4. And the spine is, it looks like 2 3/4. So I'm a lot bigger than I had originally anticipated, but I didn't want to cut off too much of the big clocks in the pictures, and so I just decided to go bigger. So I did use the lace, the trim, ribbon lace trim that I got from the store on this side here. I also used it inside of the book. I had this applique in my stash, and I don't know if you can see, but there's some little sparkly things on there. Those were from my stash too. And then on the side, I just matted it with I really liked the glitter paper with this. And I just put a little bow on top of one of the cut aparts. And the back, I just did like so. So I'll go ahead and walk through this. It was an easy book to make. I did use some dies that if you don't have, you could always substitute something else. I had these dies that I haven't used for a while, so I decided to use those. I have some corner, these are Heartfelt Creations, the angled not angled pockets, but like the corners. I'm not very good at using some of the dies. I need to start being better about it. So I decided in this book I would incorporate a few more. But this is the background. I just put a cut apart on some glitter paper here on the left hand corner and left it open so I could stick some mats back there. Now in front of every page I have one of these, and this is it's a die that Tammy used to sell at the store, and it's to make a book, but I just used this as an add-on to my pages, and so it's big enough that you could add a picture on top of. And I just had a die cut here of some leaves, and I had the word dream. The rest of it I left pretty simple just because I like the paper so well. On the back of all of those, I left, it's just the glitter paper, and I didn't do anything with those. I left those plain. So then on the first page, then we have a pocket, and I did have a die that I cut out the leaves. I matted a lot of the stuff with the glitter paper that I had. I left this open so you could tuck something underneath. So these cut aparts keep this flap closed. I just cut those out and matted them. This is open too. And then it opens up, and this is a pocket. I didn't put anything in there, did I? And then there's on the back of that flap 2 separate pockets, and I put just a mat and then a tag. I say that. I need to put some seam binding on there. And then just stuck those in the pockets, but I made them separate so that they didn't flop back and forth. They stayed where they needed to be. I actually was a little bit short on paper, so I did put some of the glitter paper here with the other paper. And then to keep it closed, again, I'm just going to stick those in like so. Okay, on the back, I hope that you guys can see this okay. This is just a belly band, 4-inch belly band, and I just glued a mat on top with some glitter paper and stuff. I I cut out something from the paper, and I put the glitter paper behind it as kind of like a pocket. And then this does flip up, so you can have a picture and some journaling, and then down below. And I just put 2 mats behind it, and then I just put a moment in time cut out on the corner here. And this is on the white mats that I have. Okay, it's not on the actual page. So again, here's one of those dies. I just put a leaf cut out, nothing else. Again, on the back I left it sparkly. So this page has 4 flaps. This has got magnets on the 4 corners so that it will keep the 4 flaps down. And I just put an applique on the top there. So each of these will open, and I just have some of the Country Craft Creations shimmer paper. And then I left this plain for pictures. And then again, you just the magnet will just keep that closed. On the back here, this is a booklet. So I kept, this is the velvet trim that Tammy sells in her store. So I just made a little booklet. And I put a little piece on the left just to add some color, but the rest of it's white, so you can just add a picture there. And then this will tie. Is that a pocket? No. So that's just decoration down there on the bottom right hand corner. And then I used a die again in the corner here, and I left it open so you could tuck a picture underneath there. A die with some flowers. This is actually, the flowers are the Graphic 45 from the big tag die. This page I trimmed with the velvet on the sides. These are both magnetic. I put some bows here so that it kind of hid where the ribbon ended, and I matted some of the cutouts on white paper, and then these just come up. And then this is a pocket strip, and these corners are actually fabric, or they're like a lace that special sewing machines make. Two little tickets. I just put a cut apart in here, and then this is also a pocket, and I just matted one of the 6x6 on some of that shimmer paper, and a die for the corners. On the back, I just use this to keep the two doors closed. So there's angled pockets here, so you can put other things in there if you want. I fussy cut some of the paper and put it here on the corner pocket. And then when you open it, I did some fussy cutting and just glued that at the top. This is the shimmer paper. I just put a white mat here that comes out. And a place for journaling down there at the bottom. And the other side kind of mimics that, only now the green's on the top and the pink's on the bottom. Again, I fussy cut, and that's just a white piece of paper for a picture. And to keep that closed, I had it this way, but I felt like it was too floppy, so maybe I need to put it in this way. I don't know. There's the die page, a leaf cutout. Not cut out, a die. And again, the sparkle on the back. This is a belly band, and so I made a pocket on the end. Here's some of that lace that I got from the store, and so I just took one of the pieces of paper and matted it on the shimmer, and this is a pocket. So then I needed something to stop you know, whatever you put behind here. So this is open at the top, so that it'll stop whatever pictures or mats you put in there. And then on the back, this is a pocket right here, and then this is actually a flap, and it opens up, and I did some fussy cutting. There's room for a picture, and then I just put two mats here and then did some fussy cutting there. Okay, and the back page, I have an applique here. I left it open on the top so that you could put a picture. And that's what I came up with. So it's 4 pages, and then there's 4 of those die cut pages. So the tutorial is going to follow. I constructed the book as I went, so like I didn't have a plan as I was going, so I might have to, during the video I might say, oh, I got to stop and think or whatever. So that's just how I design. But this is the final book. I hope you like it. In the tutorial, you know, the book is really easy to make, so I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned if you want to see the tutorial, and if you do make one, I would love to see you post it on the Facebook page, Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations. So, all right, thank you, and stay tuned for the tutorial. We're going to go ahead and get started on the tutorial for the album using the Moments in Time collection. It's a Heartfelt Creations collection. My book was originally going to be an 8x10 or 10x8. And then when I started measuring my chipboard, when I started putting the adhesive on the back, I realized something wasn't quite right. And so when I remeasured it, I must not have been paying attention. So my book is kind of a weird size. It's 9 3/4 by 8 1/4. And the spine is 2.5 by 8 1/4. So to cut your chipboard, if you're going to do it the same dimensions as I am, there are your measurements. Chipboard, 2 of them, 9 3/4 by 8 1/4. And I try, when I show you these measurements, I always try to do the first number as going across lengthwise, and then 8 1/4. The second number is always how tall or how long. Okay. And then the second one again was the spine piece, and that's 2.5 inches wide and 8 1/4 inches tall. When you are doing your cover, if you are new to my channel, I wrap most of my albums the way Tammy does from the Country Craft Creation store. And so if you're familiar with how she wraps her covers, you can go ahead and fast forward this. If you're not familiar, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So on all of your chipboard, you are going to want to put some adhesive on the back. You want your cover to be really flat when the paper gets on there, and you don't want any ripples. So I don't like to use glue because you sometimes can see the line. So have already wrapped one, and so this is what it will look like when it's done being wrapped. Okay, so it's nice and smooth. And what I'm going to do is place my 11.5 inches across the top, and I'm going to use my 1-inch spacer on the side because you want a 1-inch border on all 4 sides. Now when I cut my paper, it was off a little bit, so I'm not going to put my 1 inch across the top because I'm going to have to just kind of eyeball it, being as I didn't cut my paper exactly right. So you though want a 1-inch border around all 4 sides, and the measurements I gave you are exactly what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off of my cover, and those sheets make it so easy. And I know that I want to bump it up against this 1-inch spacer, but I'm just going to eyeball it for top and bottom because mine is not cut exactly as I would want it to be. And I'm going to turn it over, and you always want to give it a good burnish just to make sure that it sticks real well. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the cover piece, and then I'll do the spine piece next. Now I do mine, I like an angled corner, a mitered corner, rather than cutting out the square in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and take an angle off. So I'm going to go ahead, I have this tool, but it leaves a little bit of paper on the corner so that it doesn't go exactly to the corner, so when it wraps you won't see any of the chipboard. So this tool is pretty handy for me. I use it pretty much all the time. I don't use it, however, on my spine, and you'll see that in a minute. All right. So you do want to bend your paper around the chipboard, and so I just kind of take I lift it up and over, and I just kind of bring my bone folder up against the edge so that it knows where it needs to fold. It makes it a little bit more crisp. Because you want that paper right up against the chipboard. Now I do still use score tape on my covers. I am a big glitter glue person, but I do still use quite a bit of score tape on my covers. So I'm going to go ahead and place 1/4 inch score tape around the perimeter of the chipboard, and I'm going to do the score tape on the outside edge of my paper too. I just always want to make sure it lays down flat, and I just don't want to deal with any ripples, and then you don't have that drying time that you have to deal with when it comes to the glue. Now our glitter glue does dry really fast though. So once I do the chipboard, I'm going to go ahead and do it along the outside edge of my paper, so just around the perimeter. I do it after I cut the corners just so I don't waste any of my score tape. And the last one. Now I always wrap my long sides first. I've just always gotten in the habit of doing that. I don't know that there's a benefit to it, but I do like to do that. And I'm just going to make sure that I have my adhesive on real well so that when I take the backing off, it doesn't lift. So when you get started, you are going to need to take off the backing of the one long side and 2 short sides on your chipboard, and then take off that bottom piece, the backing on the bottom section of your cardstock. Now I am going to use art glitter glue, and you're going to want to put a line of the glue right up against the chipboard, and that's so that when we wrap it, it'll adhere real well, and we can use our burnishing tool to make that lay down real flat, and it just is really smooth and crisp on the edge. So I like to smooth mine out real good. I used to get ripples in my cover, and that drove me crazy. No ripples allowed. So I always do the burnishing. That's really important. And then now I'm going to take my burnishing tool and I just go along that edge so that the paper is really smooth. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's really a smooth edge. I do the opposite side now. So I need to take the backing off of the 2 long pieces, one on chipboard, one on paper. Put your glue up against the chipboard, and then I do put a little in between here, and I like to start in the middle and kind of work my way out on each side. And remember, mine are not even because I cut mine a little different, but it wasn't worth wasting the paper because it'll still work. Yours will look a little bit more uniform. So this is the part that some people don't like, the mitered corners, because you do now have that little bit of extra on the corner, and so you don't want the chipboard to show. So I just take my bone folder and I push that paper, make sure it's around the corner, and then I push it down flat, and I'll try and show you in the camera here in just a second. I just kind of push it in and down. So I don't know if you can see that. So it doesn't stick straight out, maybe. All right, so now we are going to do the short sides the same way, now that I tucked in those little corner pieces around the chipboard. This is a pretty quick process, doing your cover like this. When you used to do it as one big long piece, taping the paper together and laying it out, and it was really super long and it was kind of hard to work with. So this is pretty slick. And now we have the other short side. I've already tucked those corners around the chipboard. And I just kind of put my fingers down to keep those little corners down so they don't pop up, and bring the paper around. And burnish your edges. And because we use the score tape or the score sheets, look at how smooth that is. You don't see any kind of rippling or glue marks. So you're going to want to do that to your second piece also. Now our book is going to be going this direction, so it's longer than it is tall. And so now we are going to do our spine piece. Remember, this was 2.5 by 8 1/4. And so our paper is going to be a little bit different. Where did I put the paper? Oh, my paper was 11 3/4 by 10 1/4. I don't know if I said that now. Did I say that? I told you the chipboard size, but you always go 2 inches bigger on length and width. Now on the spine piece, you do it a little bit different. you want the sides to be 1.5 inches instead of 1 inch. So you always add 3 inches on, 1.5 inches for each side. So if my spine is 2.5 inches, I add 3, and that's how I got the 5.5 inches. And the height is 8 1/4, and I put an 8. Let me change that to 8 1/4. Okay, remember I didn't measure quite right, so it was 8 1/4. All right, so now let's do the spine, which is, like I said, a little bit different. So now I am going to use my 1 inch and my 1.5 inch spacer. So if you're not familiar with the acrylic spacers, they're really awesome, and there are different sizes now. This one's going to go on the side, and the 1 inch will go across the top. Okay, so I want a 1 inch border top and bottom, 1.5 on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off of my chipboard, and I did a little bit of piecing so I didn't waste any of my score sheets and score tape. So this one will take me a second. Oops. I had like a total of like 5 little pieces that I... All right. So just like before, we are going to butt it up against that spacer, or those 2 spacers. And then I'm done with my spacers, so I can move those off to the side. All right. This is where I do not do the mitered corners, not like I do on the cover pieces. The spine is different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bend the paper over and burnish it to make sure that it knows where it needs to go. And you do the long sides also. All right, so at this point, this is where I do things a little bit different. I do it the way that Tammy originally did it. She does it differently now and does it very well. I don't do it very well the way she does it now, so I don't know what my issue is, but I can't seem to cut it the exact way I'm supposed to. So I stick to the original. So what that means is, instead of cutting out this whole section in the corner, I do it at an angle. So I go from corner to corner, and this light is making it hard to... I'm going to cut at a diagonal. So I'll show you that here in a second. So I just took the angle off. So I'm going to do it on all 4 corners the same way. Okay. So now I am still going to use a little bit of score tape. So just on the short sides, put 1 piece on the chipboard, top and bottom. And also I do put a little piece of score tape on the end of my paper also, just on the end. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start kind of bending this paper the opposite direction just a little bit too, because we need to loosen it up a little bit. So take the backing off of one short end, both pieces here. And you are going to use glue up against the chipboard like we did the covers. But you're also going to extend that glue off to the sides. So I always refer to this as a trapezoid. We need glue in the trapezoid. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up and over, and I'm going to tuck that paper really close up against my chipboard, and then I'm going to smooth everything out. And I do want to burnish the end. That's why we put the glue on the chipboard, so that it's nice and smooth. And we're going to repeat the process on the other end. Once you make a couple, it goes really fast because now you're used to how to do it. And bring that up and over. Tuck the paper right up against that chipboard, and then flatten it out. Okay. And I do need to burnish the end. So now, let me take a drink real quick. We are going to taper, miter the edges here, because when we put our book together, if we don't, you may see this paper come out the top or the bottom of your book, and we don't want that. So we're going to take our scissors and we're going to rest them up against the chipboard and cut at an angle. I'm going to have to flip this one over, rest it up against the chipboard, cut at an angle, and you're doing that to all four corners. Oh, that one's not very straight. So I am going to take a minute to take my bone folder and burnish the paper up against the chipboard so that you see that definite ridge, because we're going to have our covers resting on top of this, and so this will just give us a real easy way to identify where to put it. Okay, so you can see that definite ridge. So I am going to go ahead and put my front and back cover on. I use score tape on this part also. So I am going to put score tape about 1/8 of an inch away from that chipboard piece. And I do usually put 3 strips, one in the center and then one on the other side, or the other end. Do that to both sides of your spine, about 1/8 of an inch away. Center and end, bottom. Take a second to burnish. Now I do have some overhang, so when I take the backing off of the paper or off the adhesive, I'm going to want to make sure I tuck that over so it doesn't, you can't see it then. So I do want to do a dry run first to make sure that I'm happy with how these line up, and I am happy with that. I'm trying to find the best lighting. So what I mean by overhang, let's see if I can show you. So see, I have a little bit of tape hanging off the side. When I take the backing off, I want to make sure I roll that glue, that tape back over. All right, so let's do this side first. Now I do use a little wet glue also so that it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to put some glue in between this 2 pieces here of score tape, in between the two pieces here. And I put a real light amount at the very edge of that score tape. I still don't do it right at the chipboard because I don't want to see any glue. All right. And I'm going to butt this up right up against there. And then I flip it over, and I will burnish that really well. So you can see, nice and neat. Let's repeat that process then on the other side. So I am going to have to tuck that excess adhesive over. Put some glue in here just like before, in between my score tape, and then just a light amount at the edge of my score tape up here. We butt it up right up against the chipboard, and then flip it over and burnish it real well. And this is called, this technique that Tammy created is called the Lay Flat album or cover, because it does exactly that. Even when you have your spine and your hinge in there and your pages. So we do want to cut out a piece that is 6 by 8 1/8, and that's to lay across here. Okay, and we do it a little bit larger so it covers both of the wings, so those don't peek through, and it lays a little bit flatter. And when we put it down, we want to make sure that top and bottom are equally spaced. So I do I want this to lay flat, and I do have score tape on the back. These are just 1-inch strips, but I am going to go ahead and also put some on my spine piece. So I put some near the bottom here and the top, not at the very top because our paper is 1/8 of an inch smaller. And then I go ahead and put it right up on the edge of the chipboard. On both sides. And I put one on the outside of the chipboard, which is probably just overkill, but I do it anyway. That spine gets a lot of use because you open and close these books a lot, so better safe than sorry. And I'll just go ahead and put, I think I have a 1-inch. I'll just go ahead and put one down the center also, even though I have score tape on the back of the paper. Okay, and I'm not going to fill that in with glue. I've done that before, and I just, even though you're putting your hinge on there, I don't like to see any bubbling or rippling or glue marks or anything like that. So now is the process of removing the backing of everything. And we're also going to take the backing off of the paper. And again, that was 6 by 8 1/8. When you do put the score tape on the back of the paper. Make sure you get it end to end, like all the corners really, you want it to lay down nice and neat. You'll have paper on top of it eventually, but I like a good coverage. Score sheets are easier, but this is what I had handy. All right, so make sure you look at top and bottom, side to side. You want it to be centered. I think I better stand so I can see the top too. And go ahead and give it a good burnish. So I'm going to move that to the side, and we're going to do our hinge next. And so you're going to need a piece that is, oops, upside down, 5.5 by 8. 5.5 by 8, just one. And we are going to score it every 1/2 inch. So starting at 1/2 and ending at 5. So you put the 5.5 inches across your scoreboard. Take your scoring tool and just do every 1/2 inch all the way down. So 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. Okay, so that's what it'll look like when it's done. And this is our hinge. And so to put this together, the first 2 pieces, I feel like the glare is bad. Nope, can't see. I don't know. The first 2 are going to get glued together to make one hinge. Third one will be a gusset. Next 2 will get glued to be a hinge. The next one a gusset. 2 a hinge, 1 a gusset, last 2 a hinge. So I am going to burnish on my score mark for the first hinge. Okay, so I'm going to end up gluing those 2 together to make a hinge. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the other ones too, so while I'm at it. Might as well do all the scoring at once. So now you can see I have 2. The next one is our gusset. Now on this last one, I do have one piece is a little bit, let me show you how I'm going to burnish one more piece. So when I glue these together, this one, oh, maybe not. You want it to be smooth. I guess it's fine. And then let me check this one. Yep, it's going to be okay, so I don't have to trim anything. Okay. So I'm going to place glue. I do one hinge at a time. So I just put glue inside of this valley on that 1/2 inch strip. There it goes. And I'm going to make sure that it is dry and we really push down well. We want this hinge to be strong and double thickness, so we really want it to stick together. Okay, now I'm going to go do, I skipped that third one, remember, that's our gusset, and I'm going to go to the next two that I'm going to glue together. Two done, two to go. All right. And I am burnishing on each side of the hinge. So I lay it down. And you'll notice we don't have wings. Some people like to, on their hinge, like to have extra side pieces to attach to the front and back cover. It's not really necessary. Your book will still stay together whether you have the hinge, the wings of the hinge going to the front and back cover. So and it's easier for me, I think, to adhere it to your book. So we have 4 pages. So you do want to kind of lay them all down to one side and make sure that they are flat. We'll push them to the other side and burnish them that direction. And now we are going to put them in our book. So yours should look like that too, with a 1/2 inch gusset on all of them. Now before I put this in, I do want to bend my book so I can see where my chipboard is, because right now I can't really tell. And so you have to be kind of gentle when you do this, just because, especially if you're not using the artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations. This is a good paper that has a linen base, and you can give it takes kind of a beating, so just be careful if you're not. And I just kind of slowly bring up my cover and kind of move my bone folder in that crease. Okay. And I'm going to do the other side too. I just kind of bend that up so I can see where the edge of the chipboard is. And that's what the edge looks like. All right, so now we put the hinge and we center it top, bottom, side to side. So I want, it should be that you have about a 1/2 inch on either side of the first and last hinge. And okay, and we want to make sure we get it as straight as we can. And I'm just going to use art glitter glue. I am really struggling here. Let's see. And I am generous with the glue when it comes to the hinge, especially on the ends and the side. think I want a little bit more right there. All right, now I eyeball it, and I'm going to stand so I can look at the top and the bottom. Kind of push these in, make sure they're even. And I think that looks good. And burnish it real well and let it dry. Okay. All right, looks good. So that is the base of our book, and now we're going to work on the base pages. So let me give you the measurements for those. So a 4-page book, you're going to need 4 pieces that measured 9.5 by 8 and 4 pieces that measure 10 by 8. So you'll need one of each for each base page. The only scoring you have to do is on the 10 by 8, and you put the 10 inches across the top and score at 1/2. That's just on the 10 by 8 sheet. You do no scoring on the 9.5 by 8. So 1/2 inch only on one end. So let's take a second to miter, or excuse me, not miter, burnish these 1/2 inch marks. And we are also going to now miter that 1/2 inch on each end. Do that to all 4 pages. And I'll do the other 2 off camera, but you get the main idea here. So then, to form your pages, we do put them together on the Hinge. And you're going to need one of the 9.5 by 8s to go with it. But we want to attach our pages together, and I want to make sure these are the same length, and I see a little bit of difference. So here's what I'm going to do. So on that 10 by 8 where we scored it 1/2, that's going to be on the outside, and we're going to tuck the 9.5 by 8 inside of it and glue it to form a page. However, you need to check the tops and the sides to make sure that the paper lines up exactly, and mine does not, so I got to do some trimming, because I'll show you what I mean by that. There's just a hair difference on the end. One piece is just a smidge longer, not much, but just a little bit. So let me even up my paper before we put it on the Hinge. So what we're doing with the pages is we are making one long, looks kind of like a book. So we're attaching 2 pieces together, and we are putting that on the outside, that 1/2 inch strip. So I've done 3 of them. Let me show you how I did that. So you're going to rest the 9 by the smaller one inside of the larger one, and it's not really as big of a deal if one's longer than the other on this short end right here, because they're going to be up against the Hinge. It's the top and the bottom that I'm really looking at. So once I think that I've got them lined up and nice and neat, I press down and I put glue on that 1/2 inch strip. And I don't move this hand because I don't want to move my paper at all until it's glued down. Some people use paper or clothespins so that it doesn't shift. And I just use a dry baby wipe to get any excess glue. And then I do want to look to see if everything looks like it's nice and neat. And I have just a hair, nobody would even notice, but I do. I can't even get my scissor around it. It's such a small amount, but there we go. Okay, so you do that to all 4 pages. So the book will, the pages are actually attached with the connected side on the right and the opening on the left. And you do want that, I like it when that 1/2 inch piece is towards the back. So when I attach these to my book, this 1/2 inch is down. Okay, so let's get our book. And what we do is we open it up and we place the page right up against the hinge, and it's the same height, so we want to make sure we get it so that it's lined up perfectly. So really check the top and the bottom to make sure it's lined up. And I'm not going to move this piece of paper once it's lined up because I don't want it to move. Really make sure I get the ends, and then I just lay that over, and you burnish it real well as always. Now you have to decide if you want this to be top opening, have the open so you can put something inside, or you can have it sealed, it doesn't matter. And then what we do is we glue the other side down on top of the other side of the hinge. So we lay it down flat, and let's go ahead, it should line up perfectly. Put glue on that hinge. Make sure, I really make sure I get the ends. Bring this over so that it's flat. Get rid of any glue that comes out. Okay, now I am going to put glue along the bottom to close the bottom. So I'm just going to do a little smidge. You can do this before you fold it over too. I should have probably done that, but it doesn't really matter. We don't want anything falling out if we put something up at the top. And I'm going to move the hinge to the opposite side. And it looks good. So you do all 4 hinges like that. So then I work from the back to the front. So then my next piece, I lay it down up against that hinge. Now this time you do want to make sure that your pages are lining up. So look to see if they are lining up with the other page you attached. And they should. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to lift that up. Hold it so it doesn't move. Glue on the hinge. Now you can also put glue here on the edge of the paper too. I think my glue's got to. Let's go ahead and do the bottom too while we got it open. What the heck did I just do? I glued it to the back instead of glued to the wrong stinking thing. That's what I did. There we go. I should have left it open. I didn't need that glue yet. What was that? Oh, man, my head was not where it should have been. I guess I was forgetting that I hadn't glued that side down yet. Okay, now we put glue on this side of the hinge. Now we put it across the bottom. And close her up. All right, and then do the other 2 pages exactly the same way. So I think I'll make this a separate video so that for those people who know how to do the cover, they don't have to fast forward on the actual video of the album itself. So that is all we're going to do with the cover. I'm going to finish the last 2 pages and then a separate video for the actual flaps and all that kind of fun stuff on top of our pages. So that is the cover. So I will see you in the next episode to work on the base pages. Alright, this is the tutorial for the pages in the Moments in Time mini album. I've already done a separate one for the cover, so we're moving on to the actual pages. I wanted to first show you the die that I am using. All of my 4 pages will have a flap in front of the page, and I used this die, so it's quite large. It is about 8 1/4 in the by 7 1/2. And at one time they were sold in Tammy's store. I don't believe they have them anymore, but it was a set, and it came with different nesting die. Like there was other ones inside to cut the mat and all that kind of stuff. So you might not have access to that, but you don't have to use this shape. You could just do a rectangular one, or if you have another die, it doesn't matter. But so I wanted to show you how I'm going to attach those to all the pages. So I have this, and then I cut a piece that was 1 1/8 by about 5 3/4. And so I placed the short side, the 1 1/8 across the top, and scored it a half on each end so that I have a 1/8 inch gusset. And so that will help if there's some bulk underneath. It'll make it not so, it'll just lay nicer this way. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to put glue on one of the 1/2 inch strips, and I'm going to glue it to the very edge of this piece, and then I'll have to do some trimming so that you don't see, but I'm just going to show you once, even though I'm going to do it on all 4 pages. Alright, so I have glue on the 1/2 inch. Oopsie. I'm going to lay it down so that it's at the very edge of my paper. I'm going to burnish it down. Okay, so now what I have is this, but you can see that you see a little piece of paper sticking out the edge. So I'm going to take my scissors and trim around that part right there, and I have to do it on both sides. And I want it to look nice and neat, so I don't want any rough edges. I want it to be a nice rounded corner. I might have to get my nail file. Okay. But you can see then that it's got kind of an angled gusset, and I don't want that. So I open it up, and I'm just going to cut straight down so that it's straight on each end, like so. Okay? So I'll show you how I'm going to attach all these on the pages, but let's go ahead and do the main part of the page first. So this is going to be, I'm going to bring my book over, and this is the front of page 1. And so let me show you the papers you're going to need to cut. You're going to need a 3 1/2 by 9. You're going to need a 6 3/4 by 8. You're going to need 2 that are at 5 by 4. And then this is for the back of page 1. You're going to need 1 that is 4 1/8 by 9 and 1 that is 4 1/8 by 8.5. So I have pre-scored mine just so that I don't forget on what sides to score. So I will still go through all that with you, but you'll notice that I have scored ahead of time. So let me show you. Let's do all of our scoring next. So you're going to take your 3.5 by 9-inch piece, and this is going to become a pocket. So with the 9 inches across the top, score at 1/2. Rotate it so that the 3.5 inches is across the top, score at 1/2. Rotate it one more time and score at 1/2. Okay, and that's going to be a pocket. The piece that measures 6 3/4 by 8, you're going to place the 6 3/4 across the top and score at 1/2 just on one end. The 2 that measure 5 by 4, you're going to place the 5 inches across the top, score at 1/2. Rotate it once so that the 4 inches is across the top, score at 1/2. Rotate it one more time, 1/2. And you're going to do that for both of the 5 by 4s. The piece that measures 4 1/8 by 8.5, place the 8.5 inches across the top, score at 1/2. The piece that measures 4.5 by 9, place the 9 inches across the top, and you're going to score at 1/2 on each end. So score at 1/2, and then I just turn it around so that the 9 inches is still across the top, and score at 1/2. Okay, so you'll probably want to take a minute now to burnish all of your score lines. And I've done it for most of them, not all of them. Okay. I originally scored this wrong, so it's a good thing I did it off camera so I didn't tell you the wrong way. And I need to do these. All right, so let's start with the 3.5 by 9 pocket. So for those of you not familiar on how to do a pocket, you are going to cut out the square in the corner, that little square after you score, there's a overlap. And so we cut out that square at a diagonal, like so. Do that to the opposite corner too, so that it looks like this. And now you do want to miter slightly at the top on that 1/2 inch, like so. Okay. Let's do the other pockets also while we're doing it. So the 2 5 by 4s are also small pockets. Take out the square at an angle where the lines intersect, miter at the top. Both pieces the same way. And miter. And the piece that's 6 3/4 by 8, we've already scored and burnished, but we want to miter those ends too on the 1/2 inch. So they all look like that. Okay. Let's go ahead and now attach it to page 1 on the front. Book. So the first long pocket we are going to attach to the front on the left hand side, like so. So we're going to put glue on the 3 sides, the 1/2 inch that we've burnished. And go to the end and make sure it's lined up. And you're going to burnish that. Okay. So we're going to do the flap next, but before we attach the flap to the book on the right hand side, we're going to place the 2 pockets behind it. So it's just easier to do it before you attach it to your book. So this is the 6 3/4 by 8. I have my score on the right hand side because it's going to be attached on the right hand side of my book. That light bothers me. So when you open it, the flap, we're going to have 2 pockets down at the bottom. Okay, so again, as we're doing this, pretend like it's on your book. The score is on the right. Open that page, and we're putting the 2 pockets top and bottom here. Now you don't want to go over the score line when you're attaching these, so you want to bring it up just a hair from the score. And you might want to do a dry fit first to make sure that they're not too wide. And I did that earlier, so I know that they fit. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down the first one. Put my glue on. Okay. And bringing it to the edge, but not all the way to the score. So this will still fold nicely. So when we put the pattern paper on, we'll just try and butt it up right up against the pocket. You could have put your pattern paper on first and then put the pockets on, but I don't like to do it that way because then sometimes I feel like I can see that 1/2 inch that's glued down. So I'm going to go ahead and do it like this. And now the other one is going to be placed right next to it. We're going to bump it up right up against there. Now see, now mine looks a little bit big. I might have to adjust just a hair. But it's better to do it now before you start to glue. Oh, no, it's fine. But I feel like one pocket is definitely taller than the other. And I don't like that. I wonder why that is. I'm going to probably make another one so that it'll bother me. So I want it to be exactly the right. I must have cut mine a hair shorter. Surprise. Okay, that's much better. So I made another one. I don't know. I'm using different cutters, and I think that totally makes a difference. Sometimes I'll use my Fiskars, sometimes I'll use the Dolly, sometimes I use my Tim Holtz, and I think I need to stick to the same one so that it measures exactly the same. But some are a little bit more convenient than others depending on how big the paper is. So, all right, so I'm going to lay this right next to it. Line it up. There we go. And burnish. So now we're going to place this on the right hand side of our book so that it's a flap that opens to the right and then has those two pockets. The lighting is bad, so I don't know if you can see them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place glue. On the 1/2 inch. And I am going to turn my book sideways just to make sure I line it up correctly. And I'm going to go all the way to the end. Like so. And I'm going to open it up and make sure it's burnished real well. Okay. So then what's going to keep this flap closed is when you put your cut aparts inside this pocket. Okay. Now I am going to attach this on top because I want all of the pages to have that decorative page on the fronts of all of these. So because I have a 1/8 inch gusset, I have a 1/2 inch piece, and I'm just going to glue that on top of my pocket, and I'm going to try and center it, but that won't get in the way of my putting the pattern paper on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now just to show you. So even if you're not using this shape and you're using a different shape for a flap, it'll still work. So again, I'm going to turn my book sideways. Here's my pocket. I'm going to center it down here. And let's see, does that look about right? All right. And I want to burnish that. Okay, so then when we put the pattern paper on our pocket, you won't see that 1/2 inch strip that we just glued to our page. So can you see that better that way? So this will open, pocket, flap. There'll be cut aparts to keep it closed. Open it, 2 pockets. On the back of page 1, we're going to do a belly band, and it's going to have a flap. So get your 4 1/8 by 9 and your 4 1/8 by 8.5, and the one that measures 8.5, we just scored it half on one end. We're going to attach that to the 9 inch piece so that the belly band in the center of our page will flap up so that you have more space for pictures. Okay, so again, I'm going to attach this first. I'm going to go ahead and miter these edges before I attach it. So with the 1/2 inch folded down, I'm going to glue the other piece right on top, and it should be exactly the same size. Okay. And I want to burnish that. And this should stay down without a magnet. Now if you want, I don't know yet, I'm making this as I go, I don't have an example quite yet. If you want, you could put seam binding down at the bottom or some sort of twine before you put your pattern paper on the top here and on the top of this, so that you could tie it closed and you just have a few little strings hanging out the bottom. That might be what I do too. So then you're going to center this on top of the page, and you'll be able to stick things underneath, and you'll have a flap. Okay, so our page is what, I don't even remember now, 9.5. 9.5. So we need half of 9.5 is 4 1/4. So I'm going to put a little mark at 4 1/4 just so I remember where the middle is, so that I can line it up a little bit better. 4 1/4. So that's the center where my belly band should go. Actually, my belly band is 4 1/8. Ooh, that's 1/16. So 2 1/16 for this one. 2 1/16. So that's about right there. So I'm going to line up my two middles like so. Okay, let's see if this is the right size. I should have done that first. It is. Perfect. Okay, so now let's put, you don't have to miter these because it's not at the end of a page. So because it's in the center, you don't have to miter your 1/2 inch. And once again, I'm going to turn my book sideways. When it's a long book like this, or a bigger book, I'm okay. And now let's put glue on the other 1/2 inch and attach it at the bottom. Okay. Now, I do have this pocket that I made and it didn't fit. Well, maybe I could put a side pocket on there and have a tag coming out. I don't want to waste this. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll center a pocket. Will I like that? I think I'd rather it be down here. I'm going to use that extra 4x5 and I'm going to put it right here. No, I'm not. See, I design as I go. So I could put it here. I'm going to save it for something else. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do for the first page. Okay, so we have our flap, pocket, flap, two pockets here. It's hard to see, it's a long book. Turn the page, and I may end up putting twine down here before I put my pattern paper on. Belly band that opens. Alright, so we are ready for page 2. For the front of page 2, let me give you the measurements for what you'll need. You're going to need 4 that measure 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. You'll need a 6x6. You'll need 2 that are 5 1/2 by 7 and 1 that is 5 by 7, and this is actually for the back of page 2. Okay, before we do any scoring, I have to adhere this first this time, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So if you have some sort of decorative flap that you're putting down with a 1/8 inch gusset, now's the time to do it for the front of page 2. And I'm going to turn it sideways. And I'm going to center it. works for me. Okay. So let's do our scoring next. Find your 4 3/4 pieces by 3.5, and on all of them you're going to go ahead and score at 1/2. So put your 4 3/4 across the top and score at 1/2. Do that to all 4. 4 3/4 across the top, score at 1/2. Okay. You are not going to score the 6 by 6, that stays plain. You are not going to score the 5 by 7, that stays plain. However, the 5.5 by 7, place your 5.5 inches across the top and score at 1/2. Do that to both pieces. 5.5 across the top, score at 1/2. Okay. So let's go ahead and burnish all of our scoring. And I am going to go ahead and miter all of these 1/2 inch pieces after I get them burnished. So just take your scissors like we have been doing and give it a slight angle on the 1/2 inch. We really only need to do it on one side, but we're going to do it on both sides just for fun. Oh, and one more. Okay, get that out of the way. And then the 2 pieces that were 5.5 by 7 that we scored, let's go ahead and take an angle off of those. Okay. So you're going to need some magnets for this part if you do it the way that I am doing it. So let's get your 4 doors, your 4 that are 4 3/4 by 3.5. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 flaps, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. So I have to make sure that I do not pass over this score mark on my flap. So you're going to go all the way to the bottom on this one and all the way to the top on this one. And yes, you will have a 1 inch space. We wanted that. Okay. Now when you do the other side, you go all the way to the end and you should have a 1 inch space on the inside too. Okay, so an inch here and an inch here. So let's go ahead and put those down. Again, I'm going to turn my book. I'm going to go ahead and do the outside flaps. And go all the way to the bottom so that it lines up with the bottom of your page. This one will go all the way to the top. You want the space in between the 2 flaps. So again, all the way to the bottom here on the side is what it actually is, like so. Okay, now I'm going to turn my book the other direction, and remember, if you have a flap, don't go over that score. So again, you're going to line it up at the very top and on the very bottom. I don't want to over that score. Okay, and one more flap down here at the bottom. Don't go over the score. And I'm just going to give these a good burnish before we move on. So we're going to have a nice, when you open these, there'll be an open, real big, large piece that you can work on. If you want, you could add a pocket down here if you wanted, or a belly band in the center, an angled pocket. I'm just going to keep it open so I can decorate it. But we do need these flaps to stay closed, so that's where the 6x6 comes in. So we're going to place the 6x6 on these 4 flaps, and with the magnets it will keep it closed. Okay, so I have to make sure that I line up. I'm going to get 4 sets. I use the basic gray. So let me get these out of the package. That's going to take me a second. Okay, so now it's time to put your magnets down. I'm going to probably put mine about right here. Maybe I want to go out a little bit farther. Okay, so that I can have I want the magnets a little bit closer to the edges on this paper. So let's go ahead and put all of our plus sides, and here's my plus, and I'm going to take the backing off and I'll put it about right there. And then I'll put the other one down here, the other one here, and the other one here. So you need 1 per door. So you take off the backing. If you get the basic gray, they have the adhesive on there. And I'm going to put it about right there. Do that. I'm putting all of the pluses down on the doors or on the flaps. Let me just double check that I'm doing this all right. Yep, it'll be fine. 2 more for the doors here. Now, I have always put a thin piece of score tape, even though I feel like it would stay even without this score tape, but I'm still going to put one on there. All right. I don't use magnets a whole lot just because there's so many pretty colored seam bindings and different things like that. It adds a lot of color, but I think this needs something a little different. So I'm going to take my 1/8 inch score tape and just put a little bit to keep it in place, like so. So now what you're going to do to make sure that you get it in the right spot, this could be the tricky part, is we're going to place the negatives on top. Okay, then we're going to take the backing off of those. And then we're going to line it up. We'll have to drop our 6x6 on here as evenly as we can. All right, so I'm going to look at it up high first and kind of make sure that I'm happy with it being even on all the sides, and then I'm going to lay it down and push. And then lift it up. And I'm going to go ahead and put the 1/8 inch score tape here. Okay. And that will keep those doors down. I don't like it that way. There, and that's the way it's supposed to go. So make sure that before you put your pattern paper on that you lay it down here to make sure it's lining up with the correct magnet, okay? All right, so now on the back, we're going to do, so on the back, for this one, it's important that you put your pattern paper on first, okay? Pattern paper on first, because we're going to have a booklet on the side and then 2 mats. So I'm not going to cut out the mats with you, but I'll give you the dimensions that I'm going to use. But we're going to put a little booklet over here, and so in order for that to look nice, pattern paper first. So let's put our booklet together. So we're going to take the 5x7, and this is also going to be a little booklet, and we're going to leave it open on the top so you could tuck something in there. So the ones that we had that were 5.5 by 7 and we scored on the 1/2 inch, we're going to put glue on that 1/2 inch and glue it right on top of the 5x7 base. Okay, so let me do the first page. And I'm going to turn it sideways. And looks pretty good. Where's my, there it is. And then there's one more page. That one we're going to glue right on top of the one we just put down. Again, I'm going to turn it sideways. So we have 1, 2, and then a third page. Now I can't adhere mine right now because I don't have my, I hate that, my pattern paper on, but you're going to put glue just on 3, after your pattern paper, put glue on just 3 sides and then place it where you want it, like so. I think I might take mine to the actual, no, I'm going to center mine. Okay. And then you'll have a space over, oh, I'll get to it. Before you glue it down, you're going to want, before you put the glue on, I better do that right now or else I'll forget to tell you. You're going to, let me find some. Let me get a piece of seam binding to show you how to keep it from flapping open. So right now, before you do anything, you're going to put a strip of glue on the back in the center and glue your seam binding down. This is the back, okay? So that it comes to the front so you can tie it closed so it doesn't flap open all the time. Okay? So put a bead of glue. Then after you've glued the seam binding on, now put the 3 sides of glue. 3 sides after you put the seam binding on. Okay? Then you can adhere it to your page. And then I'm going to use 2 3x3 mats on the right hand side of that booklet. a 3 by 3, a 3 by 3. Okay, and that's all for page 2. Page 3, let me give you the measurements. The front, you're going to need 2 that are 2 by 8.5. You're going to need 1 that is 5 by 9. On the back, you're going to need 1 that's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And 2 that are 5 1/4 by 8. Let's do our scoring next. So get your 5 by 9 piece, place your 9 inches across the top, score it 1/2, rotate it once so that the 5 inches is across the top, score it 1/2, rotate it one more time, score it 1/2. Okay. The 2 pieces that are 2 by 8.5, put your 8.5 inches across the top, score it 1/2. Do that to both pieces. Do not score the 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. The ones that are 5 1/4 by 8, put the 5 1/4 across the top, score at 1/2 on both of those. Let's go ahead and burnish our score marks. On all of them. Now on these 5 1/4 by 8 inch pieces, we are going to snip at an angle. Like so. The pieces that are 2 by 8.5, we do not need to miter those 1/2 inch pieces. You're going to need 2 magnets, or 2 sets of magnets. Now this is a pocket, so we're going to take out the square where the 2 lines intersect right here at an angle. And we are going to miter the top. Let's go ahead and burnish those. Okay, let's get our book. This is page 3. Let me move that. I am going to place my decorative flap first. So once again, I'll put glue on the 1/2 inch piece. Turn this book sideways. I'm going to center it. Okay, let's take our 5 by 9 that we made into a long pocket. Let's turn our book sideways. It's going to go on the outside. So if your book is the regular direction, it's going to go on the right. Let's get glue on all 3 sides. Line it up all the way to the bottom now that it's sideways. Check top and bottom, perfect fit. So the two belly bands are going to go here, and there'll be magnets to keep it closed. So I don't want to go over that. So I'm gonna see, do I want it to go under? I think that might be too. Let me just check something real quick to see if I like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and place your belly band, and I'm going to line mine up with this flap, the 1/2 inch flap, you know, that I put down. Okay, make sure that it works. Yes. Do the next one. Sure it's straight. Okie dokie. I don't know if you can see that. So I am going to have magnets on the two flaps here. It's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to get 2 of those ready. I can't find my other balloon. Oh, there it is. I've been looking for it. Okay. So 2 positives and 2 negatives. Okay, so I'm going to place the positives. I think I'll do, I'll put them on the belly band part and then have them meet the pocket so I can get them in the right spot. So this is a positive, and I kind of want it about, so here's the belly band. I'm probably going to put it about right there. Yeah. So okay, you can see that maybe a little bit better on that side. So I'll do the other positive. Maybe, if I can get that off. So I'm going to flap that open so I can kind of compare that they're somewhat close. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and put that 1/8 inch piece of score tape just to prevent these from moving at all. Put the minus sides on. Take off the backing, and then we'll close them, and then they'll know exactly where they need to be on that pocket. Okay, lift those off. Go ahead and put your little strip of score tape there. Okie dokie, we're getting so close. Turn the page to the back, and the first thing we need to do is take our 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 and cut it at a diagonal. So I'm going to put it in my cutter to make 2 triangles. Alright, and next we're going to do some scoring. So we're going to have 2 flaps, and I want a diagonal little pocket on each of the flaps so that I can put a mat, a larger mat in here to keep the 2 doors closed instead of using another magnet or seam binding. So you're going to have 1 door on the right and 1 door on the left, and so we need to make sure that we put have them, that we remember that you don't just put them on the sides. We have to look at it as doors. So I did this a little bit differently. This does have a 1/2 inch that's tucked under, but I did not get a 1/2 inch down here just to try and get rid of some bulk. So I put glue just at the very bottom. So let me show you how I did that. So take one of your triangles, and it doesn't matter because it was a square to begin with. It doesn't matter which side you score because we're only going to do 1 score. So put a 1/2 inch score on there. And now this piece is going on my right hand door, so that's going to be folded back and burnished. And I'm going to cut off this little excess piece that's hanging there. Okay, and I am just going to miter the other end. And that's all. I don't want any additional bulk, but if we put the glue low enough, it'll still be easy enough to mat. So I'm going to put glue on the 1/2 inch right here, and then just a tiny thin bead at the very bottom so that nothing falls out, like so. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll show you where I'm going to place that glue. So if we want to be able to put pattern paper on the right way, we got to put it way down at the bottom, just a thin line. Okay, at the very bottom. Oops. Darn it. Oops. There we go. Okay. So we did 1 on each side then, and we're going to glue these. So do a dry fit first to make sure that they fit, and mine do. And so see, to keep it closed then you're going to put a mat in the, a large mat, and tuck it in, and then you'll have that open space. Okay, so I'm going to do the outside one first. So again, I'm turning it the direction so it's easier for me to put on. I'm going to go all the way to the edge. And then, oops, sorry, I bumped the camera. And then go ahead and burnish that. And so now I have to make sure that I'm going to bump it up against this one. And it should be, yep, I still have plenty of room on that right hand side so it doesn't get in the way of my gusset. Okay. So I'm going to use this as my guide, not over here, this one. So I'm going to lay this down, bump this up against it so that they line up. And now I can open that and burnish it. And then you can put a mat in there. Do I have something cut that's big enough? So this isn't the one I'm going to use, but just to show you, that's how we keep it closed. Okay. And we are almost done. We're on our last page. So this is what we have so far. And that's with no pattern paper on it. So we have one last flap, decorative flap. And now I have to decide what I want to do on this page. So let me do some thinking. Okay, figured it out, last page. So that pocket I made earlier, I'm going to use it now, but it was a 5x4. So you need one of those. We're going to need a 10 1/4 by 4. We're going to need a 10 1/2 by 6 and a 9 1/2 by 6. Okay. So let's go ahead and burnish our score marks. Oh, sorry, I haven't even told you the score marks. My bad. I did it ahead of time. Okay, so this is the 10 1/2 by 4. Got ahead of myself. Put the 10 1/2 inches across the top and score at 1/2 and at 10. So basically a half on each end. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and burnish it as I go, just because I have mine already scored. The 5 by 4 inch square or rectangle that we had cut, I already have mine scored and cut for that pocket. So place your 5 inches across the top, score at a half. Rotate it so 4 inches is across the top, score at a half. Rotate it one more time, score at a half. And so burnish your score marks, and then we make it a pocket by cutting out the squares at an angle and mitering at the top. The 10 1/2 by 6 inch piece, and that one you're going to make a large pocket also. So place 10 1/2 inches across the top, score at 1/2. Excuse me. Turn it once so that I'm doing 5 3/4. Ignore you do. To get the best use out of your paper, do 6. Score at a half. One more time by putting the 10 1/2 inches across the top, score at a half. So the one that is 9 1/2 by 6, again, mine's a little bit shorter. Put the 6 inches across the top, score at a half. So now I need to burnish those. This one is the pocket, so I got to cut off that square at an angle. Miter at the top. Burnish. Oops. I already did. Okay, so this is going to be a large belly band, the 10 1/4 by 4, and that pocket that was the 5 by 4. I'm going to glue that to one end of the belly band so that you can place something on the inside here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on before I attach. I'm going to do a dry fit first. Hold on. I might have to. Mine's a hair too long. I gotta rescore this. It's a hair too long. I don't know how that happened. Let's see. Good thing I did that. Let's see if that does the trick. try it. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to take my pocket and glue it on the belly band first so that the opening is over here, the 1/2 inch on the right. I'm going to put my glue on. Oh, come on. There we go. I said that, now it's clogged again. That is frustrating. Okay. There we go. There. Oh my gosh, it keeps getting clogged. There we go. And then I say there I go, and then it gets clogged again, but all right, I'm going to turn that sideways. And burnish that pocket on. Now I do have to put my decorative flap on first. So glue on the 1/2 inch. Center it. And burnish it. Okay. Now I want my belly band to line up or be in the center of this flap. So about right there. Okay. So I'm going to place glue. I don't have to miter these because it's not at the end of a page. Okay. I'll just center it in on that 1/2 inch that I glued down. I'll just center it on that. There we go. And that's all I'm doing for that page. I'm hoping I have enough paper. See, I haven't made this book before. I just designed it as I went. And I have that collection, and it comes with 24 pieces of 12 by 12, but I might find some glitter paper to go with it too. Yep, there we go. And now the back page. We're going to have a pocket that has a flap that goes up. So here is the larger pocket with the scoring on 3 sides. And then I did this one at a 1/2 only, and gonna line that up, make sure it fits all right. I'm also going to do a dry fit on my pocket because I learned last time that it was not the right one. That should be okay. Yep, that's all right. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the flap on it first, but I feel like I'm going to have to do some trimming. Yeah, this is a hair too long. Let's see if that did it. Yes, it did. This paper is not even. What the heck? My paper is not even. Sorry, let me see if I can figure this out. What I need to do to adjust.
Yeah, that's not good. Huh. I'm gonna rescore it maybe? Sorry. I just don't like the way this looks. It should be. I'm going to rescore it. Nope, that doesn't work either. What the heck? Okay, give me a second. Okay, finally, my paper wasn't even. I don't know what I did wrong, but I fixed it. Okay, so this is the piece that has just the 1/2 inch flap on, or 1/2 inch on one side. And I am putting glue. I should have mitered the edges, I guess, but. And I'm going to lay it on top of the pocket, so the 1/2 inch is at the bottom. And I'm going to line it up. Like so. See, I should have mitered it, but I can go back and trim that if I need to. Actually, barely. It's almost not worth the hassle. Yeah, it's not worth the hassle. Okay, so now we're going to glue this on here. And then we are done. And then this is just pattern paper on the front and back cover. Pattern paper, and I'm putting an envelope from my envelope punch board that I'm going to make. And that's all I'm going to do. So let's put this puppy down, and then the construction is done. Now the pattern paper. And I do not give the measurements for pattern paper. That would take forever. And because some people like 1/2 inch, so, or excuse me, 1/4 inch. Some people like 1/8. Your cutting might be a hair off, so you kind of have to adjust as you go anyway. So that is why I don't give the measurements for the pattern paper for the free tutorials. And that is our book. And we have enough room to do our decorating. I love it. Nice. Okay, so I will do my decorating, and then I will add that video, the walkthrough video, to this construction video, and I'll get it up as soon as possible. So hopefully this will be up within the week. Well, if you're watching this, it got up. This is March 6th. I hope to have it up by March 12th. All right. Thank you for watching. This is a free tutorial from Country Craft Creations. The paper was Moments in Time by Heartfelt Creations. And I would love it if you would subscribe and check out the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations page on Facebook. All right. Thanks, everybody.